All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our August meeting of the MAG Standard Details and Specifications Committee. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Looks like we have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and get started. Are there any visitors online? I'm not seeing any. Looks like we've got names for everyone there too. So, okay, good. We do have a few visitors here at the meeting in person today. We've got a contingent from the Neenah Foundry that are here observing today. There's quite a group, probably 10 or 12. And I asked if they want to do introductions and they said that was okay. But just know they're here and they're going to be listening in today. And I know that in the future, there's cases that they may be involved with, but for today, they'll be just participating by listening in. So we'll go ahead and forgo any other introductions at this time and move on to agenda item number 2, which is the call to the audience. This is an opportunity that's provided to members of the public to address the Standard Specifications and Details Committee on items that are not on the agenda that are within the jurisdiction of MAG, or on items on the agenda for discussion but not for action. Members of the public who are attending the meeting in person are asked to fill out a comment card and provide it to the MAG staff. Those attending virtually are provided the option of submitting written comments related to this meeting through the MAG website at azmag.gov/comment and indicate for which meeting the comment is intended. Comments must be received at least 2 hours prior to the posted start time for the meeting. Comments received by the deadline will be provided to members of the committee in advance of the meeting. If comments are received after the deadline, comments will need to be resubmitted prior to the next meeting of the committee. Comments must not exceed 3 minutes in length. A total of 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item unless the Standard Specifications and Details Committee or chair requests an exception to this limit. Okay, Gordon, did we receive any comments online?
We did not receive any comments online prior to the meeting.
Okay, excellent. And just to confirm, I didn't see anyone online that's participating, but was there anyone else that joined the meeting that has a comment? Okay. And then just one last opportunity, if anyone here today would like to offer a comment. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item then, which is agenda item 3, the approval of the July 5th, 2023 meeting minutes. And we'll take a few minutes to scroll through those. Hopefully you've had a chance to review them. And in a moment here, we'll do a roll call vote.
Before we get to that, I have a quick question. Rob Fields has joined. Can you let us know which agency you're with? Rob Fields, are you online?
Going off memory, but I think it's Surprise. He used to be with Mason, so I recognize the name. I know Rob, and that's why it didn't dawn on me that he might be attending as a visitor. Okay, were there any questions or comments on the meeting minutes at this time? If not, we'll entertain a motion for approving those minutes.
Ryan, I'll motion.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Is there a second?
I'll second this one.
Thank you, Warren. Okay, we'll go ahead and do our roll call vote.
Okay, this is the approval of the minutes. for the July meeting. Avondale,
Yes.
Buckeye,
Buckeyes, yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
El Mirage,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale,
Glendale, yes.
Goodyear. Goodyear not present. Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa,
Yes.
Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix,
Yes.
Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise.
Yes,
So Rob, you're representing Surprise today.
yes, and I apologize. I was going to try to put it in the chat.
Thank you. Tempe, Tempe,
Yes.
thank you. Youngtown. I don't believe Youngtown's present. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We'll get moving on to a lot of our cases here. I know we've got quite a few to go over today. And so we'll kind of focus on any of these changes and updates. And I know a couple of these cases today are for information discussion. I think there's a couple that we have for possible action also. Hopefully we can keep our meeting to a reasonable length and not be here longer than needed. So if there are questions or comments, please don't hesitate to ask those as we go through the cases. And we'll just kind of start running through these here. So our next agenda item is agenda item 4, case 22-15. This is to add a new subsection 718.4 solar reflective coatings and add reference to that new section in section 334. And I think last month we had a pretty good update and overall overview of the case. Kelly, I don't know if there's any new updates or new discussion items that you want to have, and if not, we'll go ahead and open it up to the committee for any questions or comments.
Yeah, we don't have anything new to add at this time. Thank you.
Okay, from the committee members, any questions or comments?
All right, this is Craig out in Buckeye. Just last meeting, we actually talked about some additional documentation for this, the solar reflective coatings that we were going to put online. Gordon, I don't know, did that get placed online?
There is a link on the cases under consideration page to the Phoenix ASU cool payment report,
Okay,
the executive summary.
that's what I didn't see.
So yeah, there is a link to that. I didn't include it in the packet, but you can go to it from our website.
Thank you. That was all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, any additional questions or comments from committee members? Okay, I'm not hearing any at this time. So I guess the question that needs to be answered is if the committee is interested in this going to a vote. We are in our August meeting. We've got September coming up. Is there interest in this going to a vote for being included for the next year's specifications? This was already carried over from 2022 to this year. I know that we've talked about it a few times. There's in the past been some questions and some concerns. Those were discussed last month in the meeting. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to discuss with their agencies. I haven't heard any questions or comments today. So the next question I have is there interest in this moving forward and being part of the MAG specifications? Should we continue moving this forward to a vote? Is there going to be support for it? Or alternately, is there anyone that objects to this being in the specifications?
The town of Gilbert is.
I'm sorry, Angeline, what could you clarify? I think
So the town of Gilbert is because we still don't have that SRI max number that we were looking for.
Okay. Do you have a number that you guys would propose to include as a maximum, or just looking for that in general to be added?
Just looking for that measurement because we don't have no background on it. But yeah, just more information.
Okay. Was there any other items aside from a maximum SRI that you would like to see added or changed?
Not at this moment.
Okay. Kelly, can you respond to that? Is that something that you guys think would be able to be added in? Is there a number that you'd be comfortable adding in as a maximum?
Yeah, I'd have to get back with my team and Ryan on what number that would be for an SRI.
Okay. Is that something that you'd be able to do and reply back via email to the committee if that's a number? If that's the last thing that's maybe holding up the specification, maybe that's something that we can just get addressed and put in there for our next meeting. Is that something that you might be able to reply back via the email communications and let people know?
Yeah, I'll get with our team and be able to email the group back and let us know where we stand on the max SRI.
Okay. And Angeline, I'm sorry, was there any other specific comments that you're looking for, or anybody else on the committee? Are there other specific questions or comments?
That was the only comment that Gilbert had.
Okay. And anyone else? Okay, Kelly, if we can do that relatively quick, we'd want to make that change and make sure as part of the package that gets sent out for the next meeting. And if we're able to do that and have any update or change made prior to the packet going out next month, then it sounds like this is something that we could probably put on the agenda for action.
Okay, yeah, I'll get with my team as soon as possible, and we'll try to get you something within a week here before.
Okay.
Just as a comment on the process, since this is a carryover case, it either needs to be voted on at the next meeting, and if it's approved, then it would go into the MAG book. If you want to extend it for some reason, after 2 years, it will either need to be withdrawn and resubmitted, or if it's not withdrawn, if it either goes to a vote or if nothing else happens, then the process is that case could not be reintroduced for 2 years. So just as an aside to kind of help make the decision on what you might want to do with it.
Okay, thanks for the update, Gordon.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, Kelly, this is Jim Badowitz with Avondale. Is there anything in this spec? I can't remember now from what I can see here on the screen is about what happens if this goes down wrong? Your application gets messed up or something. Is there any spec that we should add or language to address mitigation to adjust something? I mean, my concern is if it goes down and it's too shiny, too much reflection. What do we need to put anything in here where it requires a contractor to go and redo it or do something?
Yeah, I think at this time we are just basically allowing the product to be used. We didn't have anything in there as far as penalties or anything to the contractor.
Like if it's too slippery or just, I don't know.
I think there is language in there on if it's over applied or slipperiness. I think that was in section 334.3.
Just the more we discuss it here, there's just more and more questions, and it's just, I don't know. like we did a project here recently. We're still evaluating it. You know, if it even works.
Yeah, and Jim, my comment on that in general is, to me, I think the addition of this to the specification, for each agency, I'll speak for City of Mesa specifically. What we would have to evaluate at that point in time is if in our design standards we choose to allow it or not. Just the addition of it as a specification in MAG doesn't automatically make it something that is permitted for use. And so I think having a new specification on this, from my perspective, is okay. It's not taking the place of a different specification. It doesn't, nowhere in our design standards does it obligate someone to do this, and nowhere does it currently give permission to use this product in the public right of way. And so it's something that if we chose to use it, we as an agency would need to update our design standards to either require, which is unlikely, or to allow. And at that point in time, we would need to determine that we were comfortable with the specification, of course, or whether there are any modifications we'd need to make. So in the absence of us utilizing this already, adding the specification to MAG, I don't think negatively impacts my agency because it won't change how things are done today. It provides us the flexibility to include it in a project in a standardized format. If we choose to use it on a case-by-case basis, we may then utilize the specification that's in MAG and add that. But it doesn't mean that people are going to go start using it without having some other form of authorization to use it. So from my perspective, I think I'm okay with it being added to MAG, even if there's still a handful of questions that are out there. And if we add it and in the future years we need to make modifications, we can do that. Or if we're doing a specific project and there's a part of it we decide we want to change, we'll change it specific to that project. So that's kind of my perspective on it.
Okay, yeah, that's true. That's a true statement. So, and I hope, as Phoenix or other agencies use this, it's if we need to make adjustments down the road, that's typical with a lot of new specs. We got to tweak them because that's just how you learn. You use them in real life and real situations out in the field. So I would agree. So.
Yeah, and in our streets maintenance department that's been using this for a few years now is really open to any discussion if you guys want to give them a call and have any more questions as well, to see the results they've been getting. From what I understand, that we haven't had any issues going through the process of putting it down and doing the last few years. So we've been pretty happy with the product.
Okay, so unless there's any additional questions or comments on this case, I'm going to recommend that each agency take a final look at it. Kelly's committed to asking questions about a maximum SRI and determining whether there's something we can add into the specification, providing that back via email communication to the committee. I'd encourage all the committee members to take any final looks at it. And if there's any questions or comments on it, let's try to get those sent over sooner than later so they can be incorporated. And then I would propose this for possible action in the next month. Kelly, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is agenda item 5, case 23-01, miscellaneous corrections. And we have items A through E in here. I think we've talked about most of these already. We've got section 401.5, change Arizona Highway Department to Arizona Department of Transportation. Item B is in section 102.10 to delete or by telegram from this section. Item C is to remove reference to manhole steps in section 605.4, 610.8, and table 771-1. Item D is to correct spelling error on detail 552. And item E is to replace section 107.4 archaeological reports title with reporting archaeological discoveries. Are there any questions or comments on these miscellaneous corrections, or are there any additional items to add to the miscellaneous corrections section?
I did receive from McDOT an update to the detail 552. He noticed as he was looking through it that gauge is also misspelled on this detail, so might as well fix that while we're at it.
Okay. Oh, thank you. So I did note it said updated 7/12/23, and I didn't catch what that update was because I remembered all those items, but that's a good point. So on item D, in addition to changing the spelling of bituminous, to change the spelling of gauge. Okay, thank you. So if there's no additional questions, comments, or additions to that, again, I would propose this for action in our next meeting. I'm kind of going out on a limb and assuming that September is our last meeting, but I guess at the end of this meeting, we'll probably discuss that and determine if we're going to carry forward into October or later in the year. But I'll go ahead and propose this for action for our next meeting. Okay, our next agenda item here, case 23-02, revised section 725, Portland Cement and Concrete. We've had quite a few discussions on this. I don't believe there's any updates, but Jeff, if you want to talk us through any additional information that you have or any last final words of thoughts on this case, we'll be happy to hear them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, we've had no real discussion or comments or questions or concerns expressed by any of the agencies in several months, either at this meeting or at the working group meeting. So I think we're ready for a vote at the September meeting as we proposed last, unless we hear anything more. If there's any other comments, questions, concerns that anybody would have or more information they need.
Okay, so on this case 23-02, does the committee have any questions or comments or any discussion on the Portland Cement and Concrete specification update? Okay, we'll go ahead and schedule this for action in our next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, agenda item 8, case 23-05, revise detail 212, the utility pothole repair detail. There were a few discussion items in our last meeting on some of the wording on the backfill material. And Arvid, do you want to update us on any of the or give us any updates to the detail and talk that through?
Yes, sir. You can see there on the screen, they changed it to asphalt or concrete pavement versus just pavement. We've eliminated under temporary pothole repairs, native soil, and just left it that the agencies have the ability to define or to approve a temporary, just because the circumstances in today's world are so varied. If it's a temporary hole, what's it going to be used for? Is it going to be short-term, long-term? So this gives the agencies the ability to know that a hole is not going to be left with native soil and cold patch and then be forgotten. And then the only final material that's now approved or recommended, I apologize, is the half-sack slurry for a final pothole backfill. And then we made a correction on the 602 to the 601 for the backfill around the utility. So that's really the gist of it there. I know that Warren had some comments, and I think we worked through those, but if not, we can talk about those now.
Thank you. So the most recent change was the changing pavement to asphalt or concrete pavement? That
Yes,
was
sir.
an update.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then down under section 355, which is the actual language that ties to the detail, you can, as Warren is showing there, you can see the changes that were adjusted to meet, to match up equally with the current detail.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the committee?
This is Warren. Thank you, Arvin.
Yes.
We did kind of talk about this a little bit in Water and Sewer Working Group, and I believe we were still kind of leaning towards having something in for the default as we talked, as potentially the pea gravel, just as a default for a temporary pothole. And I understand what you're saying, leaving it to the agency because there are so many variations, but the gut feeling is still we needed something there, unless otherwise approved by the agency, just to have it as a backup. But I know, what was your thought on that again?
Again, that is not a bad idea to go to a pea gravel. So instead of saying note 2, native soil can be used for temporary repairs, if it were to say pea gravel, 3/8 pea gravel can be used, or just pea gravel can be used for temporary repairs. The advantage of doing that is, and oftentimes our temporary holes are just filled with pea gravel and coal patch, because if a pothole is being done to find the top of an existing utility for design purposes, and then it's going to just be slurry backfilled and repaired, that's one use. The other use is construction. So a pothole is open because it's going to be crossed multiple times with a directional bore or with a trenchless application, or maybe it's going to be open in advance of an open cut operation, and we'll fill those potholes with pea gravel because it affords the ability to evacuate that hole rapidly if it needs to be reopened. And it also gives the confidence to the municipality that the agency that the hole is not going to settle, because the moment pea gravel enters into a pothole with coal patch on top of it, it's technically 100% compaction, and it's not going to create a pothole if it gets left for a while. So that, if that's what you all would like to see, I think that would be a good alternative to nothing. And like you said, Warren, that would at least give something that you can all have confidence isn't going to be settling on you anytime soon.
Warren, would you like to propose some revised wording for that note 2 then?
Sure, Mr. Chair. I believe we were leaning towards something of the, unless otherwise, a temporary backfill material shall be pea gravel unless otherwise specified by agency. I think Craig, you might have used those words. I like that, right? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I think that's pretty close to what it was in Arvin. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Is so any contractor that goes through to put to create a pothole and backfill it with that language, we're not going to be 100% granted, but we will have a better product than if we leave it to the contractor to ask the agency. At least the inspector from the field can look at it and say, this is the material that should be there.
Understood. So with that in mind, then under the temporary pothole repair notes, would you want to, I heard you say the word or the phrase, agency must approve. How did you word it, Warren? Just tell me how you worded it.
Temporary backfill material shall be pea gravel unless otherwise specified by agency.
Okay.
I'm open to other words.
I think
Warren, you're proposing to amend note number 1 with that statement you just made.
Either replacing number 2 or like you said, Dan, amending to 1. Either one I think would be fine.
I'd suggest leaving note 1 as is and just replacing the note 2 with that wording.
What if we just replace native soil with pea gravel and said pea gravel can be used for temporary repairs only? You'd be okay with that, Warren?
I think I prefer the wording that Warren had.
Okay, so change number 2 to read temporary backfill shall be pea gravel unless specified by agency,
Otherwise specified.
unless otherwise specified by agency. Okay, 10-4.
Well, will that conflict a little bit with note 1? Because agency must approve, so somebody's gonna say, okay, I'm gonna use this pea gravel, but do I still gotta get approval?
Good question, Jim. To me, I see those as separate notes, meaning you can't do any type of temporary pothole repair unless the agency approves it. We're approving a temporary pothole situation. And then if it's approved, you'll use pea gravel unless the agency says to use something different. So I'd look at those as two different things.
Okay,
You must get permission to backfill any pothole in a temporary manner. And if you're granted permission, you shall use pea gravel unless for some reason the agency specifies otherwise.
So, Mr. Chair, to that point, on note 1, what if we just strike the word backfill and it just says agency must approve a temporary pothole, period?
I'd be fine with that.
And then note 2 is temporary backfill shall be pea gravel unless otherwise specified by agency. That way it kind of flows better and it's all in the, and then then the minimum of 4-inch patching material required. I think that flows good.
that's good, because that way the agency, the contractor can't take liberty and say, oh, I'm just gonna do this as temporary, so the agency,
Correct.
their final choice says, no, this has to be permanent, so
Okay.
I kind of like that works.
Okay, so on note 1, we'll strike the word backfill and just say agency must approve a temporary pothole, period. Note 2 is temporary backfill shall be pea gravel unless otherwise specified by agency. You go to that, Warren?
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay.
Do we want to add the word pothole after temporary pothole backfill rather than just temporary fill?
Oh, under note 2, temporary pothole backfill shall, whatever you guys decide is fine with me. I think temporary backfill. Yeah, you're probably right, Gordon. Adding that word in there, pothole, clarifies it again.
Yeah.
Let's say temporary pothole material, temporary pothole backfill material shall be pea gravel unless otherwise approved by agency.
Unless otherwise specified by agency.
Yeah, otherwise specified by agency.
Okay, all right,
That's what I have too in my notes.
okay. Do you want me to make this change, Gordon, and send it to you and Warren and Craig and Jim? And then it can be moved to a vote potentially next month? Or do you want to just approve it knowing that that this is going to be the language?
That's really up to you, Arvid. It is on the agenda for action today. So someone could make a motion to approve this case with the modifications we've discussed and spell that out in the motion and then approve it today. If people are, if everyone feels comfortable with the changes that were discussed, if you feel like you'd like to have another month for people to look it over, you could delay it and do it next month if you prefer.
I would prefer to do it this month, Mr. Chairman, just because I know next month's going to be incredibly busy. I'm trying to get as much off the plate as we can now, if you're comfortable with proceeding with this language being in the motion.
Is there any
I would be comfortable making that motion unless anyone else, any concerns.
Yeah, does any other agency need to take this back further? If not, I would be in favor of voting on it this time. With the
Okay. are there any other agencies that have comments or would like more time to review? Or is there anyone that has questions on the proposed change?
Glendale doesn't have any comment.
Thank you. Okay, then let's go ahead and if someone would like to make a motion, please make the motion and include in your motion. If it's a motion for approval, please include any modifications to the detail, the ones that we just discussed. Include that in your motion so that we can do a vote.
Lauren, do you want me to read it?
I know I'm good, Arvid. I'll make the
Okay.
motion to approve case number. Arvid, what's the case number?
23-05.
23-05 with the revisions as shown, in addition to the revisions just discussed to note number 1, where we are striking the word backfill. And note number 2, the statement is temporary pothole backfill shall be pea gravel unless otherwise specified by agency.
Okay, thank you, Warren. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jim. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Sorry, clarification.
Yeah, clarification.
I think on my notes, I had backfill material and you
Yes.
didn't mention material. So do you want to include that?
Yes.
Yeah, temporary pothole backfill material shall be pea gravel unless otherwise specified by agency.
That's what I have as well.
Okay, good. That's what I had too.
Warren, is that your motion?
Yes, it is. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, Jim. Do you second that still?
I still do.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do our roll call vote.
Okay, this is case 2305 as with the changes moved by Warren. City of Avondale,
Yes.
Buckeye,
Buckeye is yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
El Mirage,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale,
Glendale, yes.
Goodyear, Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa,
Yes.
Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix, Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise,
Yes.
Tempe,
Yes.
Youngtown's not present. Phoenix, are you back online? No one from Phoenix responded. I have 12 yes, three not present.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, Arvid, for your work on that and all those others that participated in this detail and the update. It's always great when we bring a case to conclusion.
Yes, sir. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to get it more refined and I believe help the agencies get it into a better place so they have more control over the actual pothole work itself. So thank you for the opportunity.
And just for clarification, Arvid, that you're still going to make the edit to that detail for Gordon and provide that to Gordon?
Actually, I can probably make those
Yeah.
edits myself since I have the AutoCAD to
Okay,
edit
perfect.
original.
Okay, so Gordon will take care of the edits. Thank you.
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, number 9, case 23-06. This is for new vegetated or rock bioswales. And we'll go ahead and turn some time over to Bashir. If you have any updates or anything you want to talk about on this case, we'll give you the opportunity to do that first, and then we'll open up to the committee. Bashir, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I don't think there was any updates on this one.
Okay. Do you have any discussion points on it? Anything you want to talk further on it, or should we just open up to the committee?
You can open up to the committee. I haven't worked on this thing myself a whole lot. Other team members do, so they might know more than I do.
Okay. Peter, looks like you're ready to.
Yeah, so I think what we talked about last time, we had not received any comments, but I think we talked about last time carrying this forward so we could get case 12 taken care of this year to basically give this a home. And then not worry about having to put it in for this year. But I don't know if we've gotten any comments though.
Okay, I'm not aware of any comments at this point. So yeah, it seems like this case will be a carry forward case, and we'll take more time in the coming year to discuss it. However, if anyone does have a chance to review it and provide comments back, I'm sure those working on this case would be happy to have those comments at any point in time. So please feel free to review and provide those comments to our case sponsor and or Peter as well.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, case 23-07, modify the concrete collar maximum size. I'll just note that this case has been withdrawn. And so we do appreciate all the work that was put forward on it. I know, Matthew, there was some time and effort that you put in there, and we appreciate all the time that you took to work on it, answer questions for other municipalities and agencies here. So I don't want to leave this case without at least recognizing that time and effort on your part. So thank you for that. And we look forward to additional cases that you'll bring to us in the future. Is there anything you'd like to say, Matthew? Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to our next case number, which is agenda item 11, which is case 23-08, revised section 610.10 for gaskets. This is an item for discussion and possible action. Warren, I don't know that there were any changes, but if we're going to take action on this, let's go ahead and just kind of get a refresher on what the case is, make sure everyone is remembering what this proposed case is looking at changing, and then we'll open it up to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as mentioned, no additional comments. We touched on it a little bit in water and sewer. It's fairly simple change, just to increase the standard gasket thickness from the 16th to 1/8 inch for what is this more of the industry standard there. And along with that, just updating some of the older ASTM references, ANSI standards that are more reflective of a material spec sheet.
Okay, thank you. And I think I mentioned in a previous meeting, but I know the city of Mesa, the staff that I talked to have indicated this change is something that we've already been doing. It is actually the standard. So it's not a change in practice for us, but it's a reflection of getting our specification updated to match what is already being done. So is there any other committee members that have questions or comments on this case?
Just to your point, Warren, I went ahead and followed up with my water services team. They said the same thing. They're already implementing this. It's already in use. So Glendale's ready to move forward with it.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, any final questions, comments? If there's no other questions or comments, then we'll go ahead and entertain a motion on this case.
I'd motion that we take a vote on this case.
Yeah, Glendale second.
Jim, are you motioning for approval of the case?
Yes, for approval.
Okay, thank you. And was that Greg or who?
Gene, Glendale. We'll second that.
Thank you, Gene. Okay, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Avondale,
Yes.
Buckeye,
Buckeye is yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
El Mirage,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale,
Glendale, yes.
Goodyear,
Yes.
Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa,
Yes.
Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix,
Yes, and we were yes for the last one too. I had issues with my speaker.
okay, thank you. Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise,
Yes.
Tempe,
Yes.
Youngtown is not present. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Warren, I always appreciate, I know you tend to sponsor a lot of cases. It takes a lot of time on your part, a lot of dedication. I really appreciate all that you do. Your work on this case also included in that. So again, thank you very much for all your efforts.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our next agenda item, case 23-09. Proposed new section 632 on water and sanitary sewer tracer wire installation and related details. There have been a few updates on this case here. And again, Warren, this is a case that you're sponsoring. Would you please give us an overview of the latest revisions, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the case packet, there is the latest update. Page 2, I'll start doing this going forward, but page 2 will have all of the monthly updates that have occurred. We had some discussion in water and sewer, some good discussion there, and then had a follow-up meeting with one of the industry reps, Troy McGahee with New Horizon Sales. He's one of the representatives for Copperhead, which is one of the kind of the big players in the market for the tracer wire parts and pieces. Along with that, we had some discussion and some changes came about in terms of avoiding any confusion between the cathodic protection and tracer wires, because they are different things. So the point number 1 went through all of the locations where anoid is, I have trouble saying that word, is used. So I've made changes there. So now it should just be basically grounding rod. So that was a simple change there. So that covers a number of places there. And Gordon, if you wouldn't mind going back up to the top there, just to go down the list there. Oops. And then point number 2 is revise the language on the service detail to connect the blue tracer wire with the red tracer wire. Right now, or the way it was in the last packet, they were disconnected, but really needed to be connected for continuity with the first signal continuity. So the locator can still get into the meter box and disconnect the wires and connect their machine to any location, but it seemed more logical to go ahead and do a wire lug connector on those so that it's a continuous circuit through those. And the next one is revised section 632 and figure 1 for the water service, whereas the previous image only had didn't include the meter box. So that was just an update on the graphics, more or less. And we'll still need to have some further discussions in water and sewer about how to revise the detail. And I know Jim had mentioned still had some discussions on whether we want to include an option for valves. So we'll have to talk about that in water and sewer this month. And the last point is just the spec as written had defined a long tracer run as 500, but there was recommendation through the industry that really it can be, for in our case, 1,000 feet would be adequate. Well, thank you, Gordon. Let's go down the list. So that image has been updated for the water service meter box as shown. And then for cases where you have an air release valve, you'll also be able to have a connection for locating there too. No changes. No changes. And then the text here on the note has changed, where you can see now on the right in the water service section detail up at the top, you see the lug connectors showing how the blue and red wires are connected along with the text below. So those are the significant changes with this update packet.
Okay, thank you for that overview. Now, I'm trying to remember the basis of the case as a whole. I recall that there was some requirement, either state law requirement on being able to trace or detect utility pipelines, and there's some concern that the existing utilities without tracer wires are not meeting that revised statute or something along those lines. Can you refresh my memory on the basis of the case in general?
That is correct. Thank you. Yeah, on page 1, I noted the location in the Arizona revised statutes that speaks to the fact that underground facilities must be locatable. Tracer wire is an acceptable method to meet those requirements, along with locator balls and other methods too. My understanding is that the wire is the cheapest method to meet the requirements.
And so related to that, is there like metallic utilities that are already considered detectable without having tracer wire? For example, if we've got, copper water service lines, are those already considered detectable, or because of depths or other reasons? Has there been some case or some directive stating that they're not, or what's kind of dictating where we're adding the tracer wire to what utilities and what parts of the utilities?
Good questions. Good questions. As far as I know, like copper services are detectable with connecting to those with a grounding rod. And that gets into, and then for ductile iron pipe, there is potential to locate, but when you wrap them for the protection, then that reduces your ability to locate. Along with this case, I think I've mentioned I'd like to have a presentation from the industry experts on this and demonstrate and answer some of these questions on use of the equipment, some of the pitfalls, the whole methodology for grounding. Like you said, what types of materials you can locate. And I know we're also moving in the direction like PVC or different types of materials for the services that aren't going to be copper. So we're definitely going to be moving in that direction where we'll have to have some additional locating options.
Okay.
And I do have someone lined in the industry that would be willing to present on this, do a 15-minute, half an hour presentation on this, on the technology, if we're open to have that as a presentation in an upcoming meeting.
Okay. And thank you for the reminder on that. I was trying to put those pieces back together in my mind. We'll go ahead and open up to the rest of the committee for any questions or comments.
Yeah, this is Gene in Glendale. Warren, I appreciate that. I'd like to see a presentation like that. In fact, I followed around our blue staker quite a bit. Ductile iron could be a challenge to locate, and we've never really found a good way to terminate this tracer wire. So in my opinion, and Glendale's outlook on this, I think this is headed in the right direction, looking for these different grounding rods, or not anodes, but grounding rods, and then terminations, and really just a true schematic on how this could be laid out and be efficient. So thank you for bringing this together.
You're welcome, Gene. Thank you, because I personally haven't had enough experience out in the field to witness some of these things. So it helps to hear these cases. So
well, it is a rubber gasketed joint on the ductile iron pipe.
Yeah.
You do locate it, you do hook up at one end, and usually you can only get 2-3 sticks maybe, and you start losing signal. No, that's all dependent, but that's my experience.
Mm.
And then the tracer wire, generally speaking, they try bringing it up inside the valve, and that causes all kinds of issues with our exercising group. So that's the only comment we have over here in Glendale.
Thank you. Yeah, as written, this spec does not include the valves, but it does have allowances to take the tracer wire to the right of way to locations where it's easy to connect and still you won't have to have traffic control and other situations. But I had thought that through a little bit on terms of like a transmission main where you have very long runs without any appurtenances. But there are actually appurtenances like air release valves and other things that do come off that main line in the road that would allow for connections.
Well, and Warren, not terminating it in the valve boxes, to me, makes 100% sense to take it back to the right of way. That way, that challenge goes away. Mixing it up with the valve key, getting the valve key in there and twisting it up, that whole scenario goes away.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Gene, for the feedback. Other committee members? Okay. Warren, do you anticipate this is a case that's going to get carried forward to next year?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Then I heard at least Gene indicating he'd be interested in a presentation. That's probably a good idea to provide additional breadth and depth on the proposed changes here and answer additional questions. And if we start anticipating that, let's consider one of our first meetings next year for that then, as we'll take off for the end of the year. It'll be a great opportunity to bring back and remind everyone what the case is and get it started off to a good start in the next year. So thank you, Warren, again for your time and effort on this case.
No problem. Thank you.
We'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, case 23-10, thermoplastic bodied PVC drain basins. And I believe this is also one that similarly we anticipate being carried forward to the next year. Warren, you're the sponsor of this case here. If you have any discussion items on this at this time, you're welcome to take us through those, and then we'll have the committee provide questions or comments.
You are correct. No updates at this point. I believe this falls into that same category that Peter mentioned before, that it will be carried over till next year. And then once we get that other case that sets up the framework for the outside of right of way, then this will probably start moving forward again.
Okay, any discussion from the committee on this case today? Okay, great. Agenda item number 14. Case 23-11. This is to replace fly ash with coal ash and add definitions of those items into the specifications. And Jeff, we'll go ahead and turn the time over to you. I don't think there's any updates on the case, but if there's anything that you would like to review on it, we're happy to do that at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Same scenario here with this case as with the last one. We have not had any conversations. We've not had any discussions, questions, comments, concerns from any of the agencies for a couple of months since we actually split the two cases apart and got them on their own, basically. And at our last meeting, I asked for another month or so to give the agencies time to ask any additional questions or comments. This is actually a pretty simple case, even though it involves several sections. It's pretty simple verbiage change. It is currently scheduled for a vote at the next committee meeting. I would ask if any agencies have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything to bring them forward. And if not, maybe for the sake of expediency, we could even think about voting on it at this meeting.
We're unable to vote on it because it wasn't scheduled for possible action. So we can propose it for possible action the next month for sure, though. Any comments, questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none at this time, I'd encourage you to take one final look at the proposed changes, talk with your agency, other staff members, and at this time, we'll propose it for action in our next meeting. If there's any questions or comments, probably be better to get those over to Jeff sooner than later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 15, case 23-12, outside right-of-way document. And this is one that some of the past cases we've talked about being a little bit dependent on this one. For this case, we're proposing to create the document and create kind of the standard format for the future outside right-of-way supplemental specifications and details documents. And once that book becomes adopted as a item moving forward, at that point in the future years, we'll add cases to that document or to our typical standard details and specifications document, depending on which is applicable. Peter, do you want to go ahead and walk us through this case a little bit?
Yes, and we had some discussion in the working group this past month, so I'll also add that as we go through. So again, as you explained, the process is that we needed to create a framework that will allow us to get these supplemental specifications and details. And again, I think the purpose of this is to explain that these are definitely supplements to the existing MAG, similar to the way supplements are done for the city and agency details and standards. So they're not confused with that. So we're trying to use that as kind of a clarifier. These supplements are really intended to be for items that are generally performed outside the right of way. So we talked about the low impact development work that is directly adjacent to, but just outside the right of way. To try to create a form to where we can have those and potentially migrate existing city supplements that are in that same arena to give them a home, so where other agencies could benefit from having those. As we said before, this is kind of a gray area. These are not standards that are the same level of a standard often, and they are more guidelines practices. So that's why we wanted to try to use different language in these so there wouldn't be such confusion in there. So the format would basically be to identify the documents as something outside right now. Again, we've used the term outside right away. I suggest we maybe keep that for now. If in future years we come up with better language or we can talk about it now, that'd be great. But refer to these as supplemental specifications and supplemental details. The case has examples in there so you can see how it's being actually worked through. There's a suggested series of categories, again, to keep it as parallel as we can with the current mag, but again, recognizing they're slightly different. So these aren't necessarily having to be the actual final way we do it. It's going to be a work in progress, but at least we have a framework to work around, which would be a section on earthwork, section on site improvements, which a lot of the specific issues fall into. And again, I think water and storm drainage is probably the biggest ones. We have it as section 600. I think any materials that would be come up with. Again, we've attached specific case or specific examples, so there'd be some clarity on that. I think some of the things we need to go through and get worked out right now are identified in those next 5 bullets, and which is working like the change management. Make sure there's a way to carry the changes that go into this forward through the rest of it. And I don't see that as a huge challenge. One of the things that Gordon has recommended, and I do agree, is that as these cases move forward, stop blending them with the standard mag work and have the outside right-of-way work in the agenda as a separate item. And so it's very clear that what we're talking about are outside right-of-way versus the blue book type of work. That's one way to do it. And then make sure we carry these things forward so we know what they are. And again, revising the forward, and we've got an example one in there. That's the thing I really need input on to provide a clear understanding of right-of-way versus outside right-of-way. Do we need to have more set definitions? That's one question we had as we go through this. The next 2 bullets are kind of tied together because one is part of the MAG process, the other is part of each of the agencies' process. And these are the specific processes. How do we roll this out and how is it going to be distributed? It's not going to be voted on, as I understand, the same way as the blue book cases. And so our timing may not have to be the same. We may choose to have them rolled out at the same time, but there's no requirement that we may get to the end of the year. You all agree, we roll them out and say, here they are. And each agency then will determine how they want to do it. That's what follows into the next one. How do you want to manage these within the agencies? Often these are not really streets related issues. And maybe having your planning or development department, something like that, be more responsible for providing input or dealing with the aspects to these, may be a better home for it. And again, the cities may not need to adopt these as guidelines, but use them as references. Each agency is going to have to determine how they want to deal with having these, within their programs. That's kind of a quick summary. We did talk in the last working group about fine-tuning the language, but providing a motion. We didn't really have a title page to this like Warren has been doing. You can see for the other ones. So I think Gordon and I need to sit down fairly quickly and work out a motion that we can carry forward so it's real clear what we're trying to do here, as opposed to this big, long discussion that we've got. And I think I kind of dropped the ball from our last discussion. I can't remember, Gordon, if you were supposed to draft, if I was supposed to draft it, but I did find it in my notes and realized it hadn't been done. So I need to get with you on that.
Yeah, I think I can probably come up with some draft language that kind of summarizes the points that you just discussed in maybe a paragraph sort of motion that can be added to the agenda. The thought I had behind that is because most of what we've always done in the past have been approving cases, but this really isn't the same kind of thing. It's more saying, what MEG is going to be doing as far as this document is concerned, because it's not like a finalized document. So it's more determining, this is the framework. These are the things that it's going to include, a lot of the, and maybe answering some of the questions that you had there. But something that's fairly simple that people have a good idea what it is that they're voting on.
So at this point, we're open to questions, or if we want to look at anything in particular. I know time is of the essence on this, so we can move forward with it next year with the actual cases. So anything I can do to help, I'm here to do it.
Okay, thank you. So I think this is an important case. It's an item we've discussed throughout this year. We've had a lot of discussion at times about the name of the document, about the naming convention of details and specifications. And I think we've kind of addressed through that. At times, I feel like we could benefit from additional feedback from different agencies. I think this is an important enough topic that I'd like to hear comments and feedback from as many of the agencies as possible. And so I think we'll open it up right now to the committee to provide any or ask any questions, provide some feedback. But I think I'd really like to, in this meeting, just kind of take on that idea of the name of the document and see if everyone is comfortable with what you've proposed, or if there's any last thoughts on what the name of the document would be and how the details are numbered and specifications are numbered and named. I think those three items are probably important for us to finalize any discussion on this meeting in preparation for possible action.
That sounds good. We probably look at the forward that has some of that built into it, and then the following pages would have that also. So what we came up with on naming was public works construction outside the right of way, supplemental specifications and details for development outside the right of way. And I think that's the next page also has that. That's the mock-up. So supplemental specifications for public construction outside the right of way. And there's a parallel one for details also. Yeah, scroll down. Yeah, supplemental details for public works construction outside the right of way. So that's step number one.
Let's start with that, Peter. Okay. Before we dive into any more details. So I'd like to get feedback from the committee if these names look correct and appropriate, or if you have questions or comments on these names of these documents.
This is Warren. I like the way this cover looks. I think that's.
Thank you, Warren. I'll start calling out agencies by name if we don't get some good participation here, guys. So I'm looking for more feedback.
Yeah, I agree with Warren. I think you guys are on the right track. And I was wondering, with this, I've talked to our site development plan reviewers, and they like the thought of having some additional supplemental specs for some of the things they look at, such as parking lots, et cetera, on site. I didn't know what the development community was thinking about this, such as home builders or ACEC, if anybody has had a conversation with them.
So this is Roy from.
We lost you, Roy.
Sorry, pushing too many buttons there. Could you put the cover back up again? I just had a comment or just a question. In kind of off of what was just discussed, do we still want to call it public works construction? Because we're now outside of the right of way. This may not be public works. This may be private development or homeowner. I just wasn't sure if the public works construction, if that's still what we would want to keep in the title.
So yeah, that's a point. What about like calling it like for civil construction or yeah, something like that? Maybe civil construction, or
because otherwise I just feel like it could too easily get confused with the MAG specs, which are for public works construction, obviously inside the right of way. That was just a thought.
So we've kicked around some terms before. Development has been one of the words that's been used before. It is really, these are construction details, so we want to make sure that we're really in construction specifications. We're not dealing with design. So the word construction probably has to stay. The intent originally had been public works outside the right of way, like parks and libraries and public works. And it's similar, I guess, in one sense to the existing MAG, where the existing MAG standards are often used in private development. But these were for items that were outside the right of way. They weren't meant to necessarily, although it could be, if you wish, to, and maybe looking at the table of contents may be helpful on these to get some concept of the scope that we were thinking of. And so, and these came a lot from the prior work that had been done over the years, looking at, well, what would go into something like this? And I don't think they're meant to be all encompassing of all private development. Again, we're not talking the building footprint. It's definitely not to involve buildings. It's outside of that purview. So if there's some confusion, we can possibly get rid of the term public works construction, but let's think of something that would be not referencing definitely just private. It can be for public works also.
Probably maybe just eliminate the word public works and just say, or construction outside of right of way, and then it covers both instances if it's a public works project or private development. I mean, a city project, I should say.
Mm-hmm. That's not bad.
I like the word civil construction outside of right of way.
Yeah, because it kind of differentiates from building construction. So that's why I kind of like the word civil too.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That is a very good point.
You know, so supplemental details for civil construction outside of right of way. I think everybody knows what civil means, you know, so you don't want to say horizontal or vertical either. So I think that's what I would do if you want to remove public work. So
okay.
So that was my thought. We don't want to get confused with buildings.
It sounds like we work towards a consensus there. Are there any more comments or support or people that disagree with the modification on the title?
One down.
Okay, great. Let's
progress.
Let's go to the way the details are numbered and specifications are numbered. Walk us through that specifically again.
Okay, so again, there was an attempt to stay fairly parallel with the existing ones as supplements, and the agencies have done the same thing. Now, our challenge has always been picking a number system. The thought was to try to keep them reasonably parallel, but give them a different acronym in front. We kicked around different ideas, we worked through all the letters, and there seemed to be a lot of those that had already been used by different agencies that could get confusing. So we decided not to go with maybe a single letter, but try to give it something that would definitely be unique. We talked about using thousands potential, put another zero behind it, but existing city supplements, a number of them already do that. And again, we didn't want them to get confused with existing city supplements. So this is kind of what we proposed in terms of the numbering system itself, using that outside right-of-way acronym, and then putting the 3-digit number system behind that is parallel to the existing MAG.
Okay, thank you. So can we see an example of what is this what the specification would look like? The one you're looking at there, that's what the specification title would look like?
Yeah, so yeah, scroll up to there. This is part of the current case on the rock bioswales and all. So this is specifications in there. So you would see the section number outside right of way -644, the title being in there, and then just to make sure there's never confusion, we were putting the acronym or the lettering in front of each section number. Again, trying to make sure that there was no confusion on those. If you'll see, we don't call anywhere in the word standard is taken out. It's all supplemental specification, supplemental detail. At the bottom of the page, I think we had, and supplemental specification for outside right of way. And here we'll have to add in again the word civil construction. That would go there again to provide clarity and differentiation. Details would be something similar. I think we've got an example in for that. Yeah, again, taking the vegetated rock bioswales, we have the numbering system in a similar manner. That I think was the only change because oh yes, a supplemental detail. That's right. We took out just the word detail or standard detail. It's now supplemental detail.
Peter, were you going to get rid of the English there? Did we decide to do that? I thought.
I wasn't sure what we wanted to do. That's a bigger question than just this. I'm more than happy to.
Okay, let's get some additional discussion, questions, comments, feedback on the naming convention. Are people in support of this structure, or are there alternate suggestions?
I think that's probably the best thing because it's easier because the numbers are already the sections are already established and all you're doing is just putting a prefix there to clarify if it's outside the right of way. So you don't have to worry about the thousands like Peter was saying, or maybe conflicting with other cities. So I think this is probably the best. I like it.
I agree with Jim on that. It's the most transparent or easiest to read that I've seen, and it makes the most sense that I've seen up to this point. So I'd agree with you on that, Jim. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, and this way we've got room for, who knows down the road, what we might use we might have to go into the thousands anyways, and so then we've got to redo all this. So this I think it's good. It's a prefix. It's by itself. So, but it's still got roots in the section numbers from the existing blue book. So I think this is the best you can do, really.
Would we want to put the only other thing I thought of, if somebody looks at it and doesn't really understand the acronym, would we want to, and like on this, the standards or the specification component of it, we actually have at the very bottom what it is, which book it's referring to. See at the very bottom. Would we want to do something similar to the details? Actually say there in a corner there, supplemental details for outside right-of-way construction. And put that on a detail also, just shove it in the corner. That'd be the only other thing I could think to make sure it is crystal clear what this is.
And Mrs. Warren, while we're there on the table of contents, Gordon, just get my mind around the difference between 400 and 600. 600 probably should be water, sewer, and storm drainage, right?
True. We hadn't really had any, but you're correct. We probably need to change that.
But in, trying to get what is the difference between something for water, sewer, or storm drainage versus a site improvement,
Yeah, I think, we need to add sewer and 600 because there might be, we use different cleanouts in private parking lots. So, I could see a detail just for private parking lots for cleanouts. That's different than the current one in the blue book.
So the big one is 400 that title has nothing to do with the existing MAG standard. And the reason we picked 400 was likely the things in the existing 400 had no business being outside the right of way, if I remember right. We didn't think they would, or they would be dealing with general improvements. And so we picked the term improvements to be kind of a catch-all and threw 400 at it.
Say, Peter, this is Roy. To that point, I guess, do we want to use the 600 for water and storm drainage and sewer if we don't want it, I guess I'm just trying to figure out in my little brain, do we want the numbers to be the same as what's in MAG, or do we specifically want to have a different number series or a separate? I guess I'm trying to envision how much correspond or coordination back and forth between this document and the MAG document. If this document is going to be referencing MAG specs, or if it is also going to be referencing MAG details, or if it's going to be complete standalone.
It definitely references existing, especially the materials. It's likely, at least right now, we have very few materials we're really thinking they're going to be unique. I think the only one we've kicked around is parking lot pavement paint. I mean, that's the only thing that's significantly different than what's done in the streets. Because of the material connection, it will necessarily have to reference existing MAG standards and details.
Peter, this is Craig and Buckeye. So I just want to say thanks for what you've done. I know you've been working on this for a while. But I do like the corresponding numbers on the outside of right of way with the current MAG. We've all been using MAG for a number of years, and it's just intuitive. We want to look for something water sewer. In our brain, we already know it's going to be a 6 something, but then it's also very clear that it's not part of the right of way because it's got this OROW at the very beginning. So I like the fact that we are, playing with the same numbers of the original MAG. However, we are very clearly defining that this is an outside of right-of-way document. So I really like how that's developed as we've gone through this.
I think also, and probably work similar to a lot of the agency supplements who maybe change some part of an existing MAG spec by just adding a number. Or an example that you see in the table of contents is like the landscaping and planting, which is in the MAG specs, but there's been discussion about including additional types of planting and things like that in the outside right of way, that it might make sense to have the same 430 since you're used to knowing what that number is. It's just with the prefix in front, you would know, it might reference the existing MAG 430 for a lot of it, and then add new things on a different 430.7 or something in the supplement.
Now, the current MAG references part 400 as right-of-way and traffic control. By its name, we couldn't use that name because it's not right-of-way. Traffic control is definitely within the right-of-way. So that's why we tried to come up with a different name for it, which was more descriptive. Now, again, landscaping is a 401. We thought that some of those 400 items would probably be correct, but they're really, I didn't want to use the word off-site improvements. I tried to get the word off out of there. We'd had that discussion before. So just having site seemed to be fuzzy enough. And again, section 300 is streets and related work, where again, we're not trying to be in the streets, so we didn't think that section was going to be applicable. There didn't seem to be any need to have a general condition as of now, at least, because that's already handled within MAG. Earthwork there, yes, it definitely could be potential ones. Structures, maybe in the future there would be outside right-of-way structures, but again, nothing had come up in the past that we were jumping right into on that. So water, sewer, storm drain, and irrigation, we could make sure we have the same parallel wording there, and of course, materials is parallel. So that was kind of the logic associated with the name, the naming of the sections and the numbering.
Okay, Roy, did that kind of answer some of your questions, and do you have any follow-up on that?
No, it did, and I think Peter, like I also appreciate. I know you've been doing a lot of stuff here. That works for me. I was just trying to visualize the future and how these two documents are going to work together. Like Gordon said, where maybe now some of the cities will have their own outside right-of-way supplements, which I guess in this case would be outside right-of-way supplements.
And part of the goal is that this would be the catch-all place. And if you notice that table of contents, the attempt was to look through some existing city supplements and say, hey, there's things in there like bicycle bicycle trash racks and trash receptacle enclosures that are in existing city supplements. This may be a better place for something like that. The multi-use trail, fire department access, pavers and non-traveled ways. Those are all ones that are in existing city supplements that really they would have a home for it here that didn't necessarily fit very well within the existing Blue Book.
I think Peter's just lining up 20 more years worth of cases for himself.
My wife does not want to hear that.
No, and I also agree with the numbering. And I can't think of a better way. The only downside, and like I said, I don't think the downside overrides at all what you've got here. But I'm just envisioning, whether you're designing a set of plans, you're calling out a detail, or you're calling out a spec, and now instead of calling out, mag spec, or mag detail, you're calling out OROW detail. But I suppose it's a few more characters, but it's not significant. And I would think the engineering and the design community obviously could certainly handle that change. It's just there'll be a few more alphanumeric characters to call out a detail that's specific, or a spec that's specific to these groups. So I can't think of a better way right now to do that and just make it less characters, because I think you need the characters to make sure that it's not that it's distinct.
And again, if over time, next few years, we get this, we start using it, we start getting feedback from the design and construction community going, hey, we're getting confused, then we can address it directly with people and see, well, what is the level of confusion? Do we need to add in more numbers? Do we have to put a dash something? We can work on that if there is confusion, because I hate to say it's easy to change because you have to change every single one, but it's not the most impossible thing to do.
Okay, thank you everyone for the feedback and comments. I think those were the prominent items I wanted to address and make sure we were kind of coming down to consensus on. And it sounds like there was a proposed revision to the names of the detail specifications to take out public works and put in the word civil. It seemed like there was support for the naming convention and appearance on the standard details and specifications as currently shown. Are there any additional questions or comments from the committee? Okay, and then just to kind of summarize what we've discussed here, Peter, it sounds like between you and Gordon, you're going to work on a statement of some sort for when we're going to propose action in September on this case, and there'll be some type of a document summarizing what all this case entails so that the agencies have a clear understanding of what they will be voting on. And it sounded like, Gordon, you were going to take the first attempt at drafting that up. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll start with that and work with Peter to kind of fine tune it.
Okay, so I'll look forward to seeing that come out in our next agenda packet, and we'll propose this case for action in September. And again, there's been a lot of work on this. Thank you, Peter, and everybody else that's been involved. I appreciate the dialogue and feedback today. I do believe our committee is stronger and better when we get good participation. So thank you, everyone, for your comments and feedback.
I have another comment before we move on. I would like or hope that the agency members will take a look at those issues to be resolved questions and see if they have some ideas or comments on that. I had a meeting earlier this week on Monday with the city of Phoenix, and Bloomberg Associates are working with them on their greening infrastructure, and they wanted to talk to me about the MAG outside right-of-way working group and this document specifically as something that they could help in trying to implement greening infrastructure in the offsite or even where it may touch into the public works. And the feedback that I got from them is that they are really looking forward to something like this that helps cover that gray area, because they're having issues right now trying to make those projects, the greening infrastructure projects, work within their own approval processes.
Great. Thank you, Gordon. Okay, let's go to our next agenda item 16, which is potential cases for 2024. And this is an opportunity for any of the members considering bringing forth new cases that are not included in the working group reports. We can discuss those at this time. You can talk about those cases. And we're kind of at the second to last, what I believe is the second to last meeting for this year. So maybe many of these cases will be ones coming forth in the coming year. Are there any committee members that have a potential case they'd like to bring up at this time? Okay, we'll have a nice off season to think of a few more, I'm sure. We'll go on to our next agenda item, which is our working group reports. And again, I'd encourage you to focus on any items in the working groups that haven't already been discussed as part of the cases today. We'll go ahead and start with our water and sewer working group. Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. So we met on July 18th. Basically covered, it was at the Gordon or the Warren show. We covered really quick discussion on utility pothole repair, which we got basically confirmed and voted on today. So and then we didn't spend a lot of time on Warren's case 23-09, the tracer wire spec. So it's good. We're making a lot of progress. It's good to get the third party or private sector involved. I did offer a company to Warren that we might want to also get involved. That they specialize in cathodic protection, and so they're another expert that I'd like to get their input on before we finalize the case.
Jim, on that, I'll go ahead and email a draft to them.
Okay.
I've been meaning to do that. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. We had a little discussion on precast box culvert. That might be a future case coming in here, is that we want to add a detail for precast boxes, kind of similar to what ADOT has. So I think there's a possible need for that. So that might be coming, a future case next year. And that was about it, really. We're going to have a presentation from Nina here down the road on modifications to some of the manhole frame and covers, update those, and that was about it. So our next meeting will be actually be on the fourth Tuesday this month, because we got a long month. So it'll be on August 22nd at 1:30, online only. So thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Jim. We'll move on to our asphalt materials concrete working groups.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had case 2302 and case 2311 on the agenda. There was no questions, comments, discussion about either case. I think our meeting was 10 minutes long. By the way that we schedule things, our next meeting would be August 17th, but unless I hear from one of the agencies or someone about wanting to have some additional conversation or discussion, we probably will not hold that meeting.
Okay, sounds great. Made some good progress the past few years, and the cases are dwindling for that group a little bit. So
wait till next year.
Yeah, wait till next year. All right. We'll go ahead and go to our outside right-of-way working group. And Peter, my guess is we've already talked about most everything, but go ahead and give us our working group report.
Yes, yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did have their meeting on the July 20th. And again, that was the major topic of conversation. I did want to mention, though, we are making some really good progress on the other potential cases for 2024. The spillway detail one is actually well underway. And we had quite a bit of discussion on that in particular and got some good feedback. So for the next meeting, we'll be having hopefully have that updated. And I'm very sure we'll have that ready for next year for presentation. Detention tanks, that was kind of, we shelved that for discussion. The infiltration trenches, we did talk about that more. So you're kind of seeing the list of the 2024. Oh, we're going to remove dome structures. It's going to be its own. And the other item that came up was we're going to look at the Pima County documents because they've been developing a lot of these, and we may be able to piggyback onto what they've done. One thing that came to mind in this discussion is Dan's question on running things through the home builders and ACEC. And I think what we'll probably want to do in the future, as cases are being developed, go ahead and bring them into the working group level of that and start running those through so we can get some of their input also. So that was a great recommendation, Dan, and I want to make sure we get that put in there so we can start doing that as cases get developed. Next meeting is August 17th. That's the hybrid meeting. It's going to be at the MEG offices. Pizza and sodas will be there. So we're trying to encourage people to have some fun and meet once every few months together, but it will also be online. Any questions? I can go through those.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our next agenda item 18, which is our staff report. Gordon?
Thank you, Chairman. Just have a quick comment. I did not receive any vice chair letters, so I wasn't terribly surprised, but unfortunately, we don't have anyone yet to volunteer. I have talked to our government's relation manager here at MAG, and he is starting to talk with some of the intergovs at some of the West Valley cities to see if they would encourage someone, one of the West Valley members to kind of step forward. So you may hear, or you may find from your boss that we've been contacting different people to try and encourage them to serve as chair. I don't really have any answers yet on that. There is an intergov meeting on Thursday where they may bring this up if we don't have any resolution by then.
Thank you, Gordon. And I can assure you that it is not a difficult task to take on. And it really is not a big time consuming task either. So please, if you've been hesitant because you were not sure if you could handle that, please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you about it. Or Gordon, I know, would love to talk to you about it. And it probably will look better if you volunteer before you're voluntold. All right, thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 18, 18 part 2 here, which is general discussion. If there's any additional items that committee members would like to discuss, now's an opportunity to do that. Okay, hearing none, agenda item 19, request for future agenda items. If there's any that we haven't already discussed and would like to be brought up at this time, we can do that. Okay, and agenda item 20, any final comments from the committee? Okay, I guess my thought is that we've scheduled possible action on cases for September. I would anticipate September being our last meeting of this year. We can always determine in that month if we need to continue moving forward to October. We can have that discussion at that time. But for now, I would anticipate September being our last committee meeting for this year. Gordon, any final thoughts or comments?
Just to let you know that as these cases are approved, I will begin making updates to the specifications and detail drafts. And as I make those, I will send them back to the case sponsors first so that you can review and make sure that I got all of the updates and corrections made correctly. But those will eventually be included in the update packet that's reviewed by our public works directors, as well as the management committee and regional council here at MAG.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we'll look forward to meeting again next month, and we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Nice job. Thank you.